3, 2, 1.
Here we go! Happy Freight Friday. Welcome to Mad Gains Live. Today, we are talking about freight difficulties with the most amazing women in the industry. I'm very excited about this episode. Grab a beer, get ready, bring your problems, put your problems in the comments, what you've been dealing with this week. Let's talk about capacity. Let's talk about fuel. Let's talk about lots of problems. Talk about egos. I had a couple people message me and they wanted to talk more about egos in the workplace. So let's get started. First, a big thank you to our sponsors who make this show possible. We have JJ Keller, who are your safety consultants if you're a trucking company. And I think they help shippers and brokers as well, but mostly trucking companies. They have about 150 consultants across the country. They handle safety plans, training, audits, inspections, hiring drivers, incident tracking, all that jazz. So reach out to JJ Keller. They will help you with all of your trucking needs. We also have OTR Capital, which our famous Grace is on the show today, and you will see her passion for drivers and for truckers, and they help brokers too. The thing I love about OTR Capital is they don't play games. They treat you like your family. There's not a lot of back and forth with costs and termination fees and hidden this, hidden that. Nope. Clean, easy to work with. Reach out to OTR Capital. And then our last sponsor, which a big thank you to Swan Leap, which is our freight brokerage TMS. Flexible. They are newer. They're not clunky and old. So y'all just need to look at Swan Leap as your new TMS. They have 6 months free. If you click on the link that's in the description, they will give you 6 months free as being part of Madtropolis. So let's get the party started. Happy Friday. I saw that Steve Perez is in the house. Eric French is here next. Exit Logistix. Matt Fink, who I love. Vitaly from Canada. And we also have breaded butter. The mysterious breaded butter has shown up. What are we going to learn from him today? Ooh.
Breaded butter.
Welcome. All right, so here's what we'll do. I see Grace has joined us too. We have Grace from OTR, we have Abby, we have Tristen, we have Grace Sharkey. So I'm going to do an introduction, or you guys actually can do the introduction. Let's start with our famous OTR Grace. You can go first. There's a rumor that you're on the beach.
I am. I'm in South Carolina. So I'm sorry,
Nice.
My background isn't more exciting, but there's a beach right there.
Show us the beach.
Yes, I am Grace Maher with OTR Capital, OTR Grace. It's great to be here. Cassandra, you talk about it so well, but the way we see it is if we just want to help trucking companies succeed. So I am very passionate about the carrier, owner-operators, small trucking companies, and excited to be here.
I love it. Thank you for joining us. Abby, where are you? Are you in Chicago?
I am back in Chicago. Yep, I just got actually back from Chattanooga yesterday. So back to the cold tundra. It's like 40 degrees and windy and yeah. But I'm Abby, Director of Sales for Riverside Transport. And I am so excited to be here and talk about today's topics.
I'm excited too. And Abby, do you guys have a logistics company and an asset company, right? I always
Yes, we're asset based, and then we have a logistics arm. So we got it all.
Good to know. And then we have Grace Sharkey from, I think you're in Michigan today, right? Or are you traveling everywhere on a meet, Grace?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, awesome. I you know what? I'm not at my home. I'm taking care of my parents' animals while they're on vacation. So you can see their old school phone in the background.
Yes, I love it.
Some of you might not know what that is. Yeah. So if that might ring. If that rings, my bad. Like,
can you wait? If it rings, can you pick it up? And when you pick up, can you wind the cord around your finger and pull at it and tug on it?
Right.
Oops. Go Pack!
Yeah, so I am a freight nerd. That's really how I met Cassandra as well. Just I love everything about this industry. I've had experience more of the brokerage side of things. And I love how technology is starting to infuse itself into this industry. And yeah, I'm I'd like to say I'm friends with all of you guys, so that's a thing. And I'm really, especially being Women's History Month and everything, just very into trying to get women to be more vocal in this industry. It's something that, Ellen from Women in Trucking has always been, especially this year's been talking about. Like, this is the year that we're finally starting to be heard. So I love this. I love all of you guys. I'm excited to be here today.
Yay, I'm so glad to have you. And then my favorite, Tristen from, I think, are you in Atlanta today? Every time I talk to you in Atlanta or one of the Carolinas.
I'm in South Carolina.
You're in South Carolina.
I'm going to meet OTR Grace at the beach in a minute.
Yeah.
Nice.
Where was our invite?
I know, but I would rather be at the beach than here.
Definitely.
So, Tristen, tell us about your business. And you also have a very powerful women's group as well.
Yeah. So I'm a broker and a fleet owner as well. 2 different companies. We have the trucking side, and then I have a brokerage. I'm the founder of what's called the Leading Ladies of Logistix. And it's a group that I put together when I got started in the industry. I didn't know women. So in 2017, I came up with this idea of putting out this brand that would attract women in the industry. And that's exactly what happened. We have a group with over 3,000 women right now. We're growing. And it's really just to help educate women, help them avoid some of the mistakes that me and some of my partners have definitely made in our time in the industry.
I love it. I think, Tristen, it would be great if you could start off the discussion. We were talking about this a little bit before we went live. When we were talking about the brokers, the shippers, and the carriers and all the problems they're dealing with this month, one thing you mentioned was driver shortage. We don't talk about driver shortage too much on this show. And I think sometimes it kind of feels a bit of a hopeless topic. But maybe since you're more of an expert than many of us who come on the show in this area, what are some of your thoughts and what are you seeing out there right now?
Well, for me,
I like that you huff before. Oh my God.
It was more so me hiring drivers for my company and not getting honest people. I would hire drivers after going through the whole screening process, background check, drug screen, everything good to go, great people, good references. And then once they got to work, it's like, oh, well, I said I could stay out on the road for a month, but I got to pick my kid up from school on Thursdays. And I'm like, oh my God. I would talk all day if I tell you the stories from different drivers that I've personally brought on board or interviewed. It was just always something, so here recently I'm like, listen, I'm going to deal with a recruiting company. Let them do all the work. Let them find me some drivers. Let them go through the headache, because it's been tough for me as an owner. It's been tough. I do have a good crew right now, and I'm very, very thankful. I was just telling you, we brought 2 guys on today, and I think they're going to be a great fit for us. But that has been definitely one of the things that we've struggled with, is just good drivers. And I feel like we do very well with paying them and taking care of them, making sure they have what they need. So it's just been crazy for me.
I think loyalty is completely gone in this industry. Like, it used to be so awesome that drivers would be so, like they would treat their brokers or whoever they're working with really well. And it was like a partnership for years. And now that's so hard to come by unless they're smaller, more like mom and pops.
Yeah, that's what I'm used to, Abby, because when we got started in 2009, my father-in-law was my first driver, and we really built those relationships. We ran loads for the same brokers over and over. It's so different now.
Freight's just so good right now, though. It's hard to find drivers because many of the good ones are actually going to go run their own authority. They're going to run freight for themselves. So that's part of the problem, is right now freight's just so good that it's hard to find a driver to lease onto your own company, because they're probably doing it themselves. And then when it gets harder, then they'll go lease back on to established trucking companies that can help weather the storm when it gets tight again.
Yeah, the barrier of entry is so easy now.
It is.
Yeah. There's so many different technologies that can help you find loads. There's, I think, once you figure out the insurance side, which is also getting much better, maybe not rate wise, but to find quotes. It's not too difficult. You just, you have to be able to put that capital into the truck. But yeah, I agree with other Grace number one, that I think right now is when you see them almost doubling down on it.
For sure. So to take a step back, I know, like, are you seeing, Tristen, do you remember when this thing called COVID hit last year and a lot of truck driving schools shut down for a long period of time? Did you feel the gap from that? Do you think that's what's driving the shortage, or is it still pay that's driving the shortage, or just generally?
I think it's a
nobody wants to
mixture.
be a truck driver.
I think it's a mixture. And the pandemic was tough for me. So that was a deep dive because it was very tough. I have flatbeds, and the rates we were offered during that time, I'm sorry, you said pandemic. You're going to get me on a whole nother tangent.
Oh, that's okay. You can get on any tangent you want.
Difficult. But I do think it's a mixture of both. I think it's a mixture.
I think so too. I think I'm trying to figure out why, like Innovative Logistics Group just said what I was thinking. It says the younger generation isn't as committed to the poor OTR lifestyle as prior generations. And
Definitely.
it's definitely not a sexy job to have. Although some of us might disagree, like Grace. I see Grace. I think Grace wants to drive a truck one day.
Me? Yes.
Yeah.
She's
No,
going
I
to
know,
be
Grace,
in
and I said,
lows.
it's not really a sexy job. And you were like, huh?
Like,
But
I drive by myself. Like, normally I'll go on a 2-hour road trip with no motivation or profit or revenue behind it.
Oh my gosh.
Opposite, just cost. I think that to touch on the shortage, if you want to say, I think it was Jason Miller, like, put out, he does supply chain, he's professor for supply chain at Michigan State, that a lot of drivers were like starting to move into construction. Like, it's still that type of like industry, I guess, for them in terms of like the blue collar, and you're constantly moving from job to job. But what's difficult about that is I think there's going to be more infrastructure cost happening. So if that's the industry that they're moving to, like, that's not an industry I think that anytime soon is not going to need workers. So it's kind of scary to think that these two industries that are becoming increasingly important are now dueling for the same employees.
Right.
I mean, I just go back to, I'm not sure that there's a driver shortage so much as there's a good driver shortage. I mean, there's new authorities. I mean, drivers are coming into the market all the time. It's just whether or not you want to hire them. As Tristen mentioned, you don't want any driver. You want a good driver, someone that's got a track record, can show you their safety scores, understands what tarping means, and teaching all this stuff. Nobody really wants to take on the brand new driver. They're out there because freight is so good right now. People do recognize, like, this is a good job opportunity. Sure, it's not that glamorous as some of the comments are mentioning. And, no, it's over the road lifestyle is hard, but people will flock where the money is, and the money is there right now. It's just that the experience is already taken up. Those drivers are they're taken.
Mm-hmm. And with the drug clearinghouse too, I mean, it's only, in my opinion, it's only going to get worse and worse and worse. Last year, all of the drivers that got in trouble, I think there was, I was talking about this the last time, but I think out of the 47,000 drivers that got penalized, there was only like 35,000 that came back into I don't know, somebody might correct me, but moral is there's going to be less and less, especially with the, if they have to pass drug tests, like, let's be real, it's not going to be great. It's not going to get better probably, unless we pay more and we start teaching it from an early, age, that this is cool. This is a good job to have. And this job has purpose, and it's not just something that, should be frowned upon.
And Innovative just said something, and I think it's so true. He said there's a shortage of good companies to work for. Oh my God. Literally, the two guys that came to meet me this morning, they're coming from a company they're still working for, and they've had bounce checks. So it's so true what he's saying. Like, it's the companies as well. Drivers are looking for a good company to go to, and that's why a lot of them are bouncing around and not staying where they are. It's crazy.
Like, what defines a good company besides having money? That would be a good
Good equipment, making sure the drivers are taken care of, they get what they need. I mean, it's a job. They still have to work. But I definitely believe in taking care of my drivers. If it's, I allow them to be a part of the team, give us suggestions. What can we do better? And the ones that I have now, like I said, I have a really good team, and I'm blessed. I'm thankful for that. But I feel like that's a part of it too. You got to make sure the drivers are taken care of. They're on the road. They're away from their families. They're gone for a long time. They miss holidays sometimes. You got to take care of them too. The benefits, definitely the pay.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's why you see people moving to recruiters, like you said. Like, those guys really have almost like a underground black market, like relationship with drivers. They just like know where they're all those are really my favorite people to hang out with, because they just like know what the shippers are up to. They know what, hi Amanda, they know what
It looks so nice.
I know. I only curled my hair because Amanda said she was going to look at me. So, but I think that's really smart that you did that, because these recruiters, like, it's the same reason why people use recruiters now. That's what they're really good at. They've got their ear to the floor. Is that the saying? And they know what's happening. So I would definitely, if I had a trucking company, I would lean on those guys 100%.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show, Amanda Miller. For the very first time, everybody knows her from being our comments manager. And sometimes, Amanda, you've had to put people in timeout in the comments.
Yeah. If you get put in timeout, there's a reason.
I remember one time there was a guy he was typing away, going nuts in the comments, and Amanda warned him. She's like, "You better slow your roll. You're gonna be put out timeout again." It was like a 4-year-old, and he's like, "No, Amanda, please don't put me in timeout. Please, I have 4 more things to say," or something like that. She's like, "In timeout, you go." I'm trying to focus on the show, but I was laughing so hard as I see these comments. Amanda, I'm so excited you joined me. We're talking about driver shortage, driver pay, and it's a topic we haven't talked about that much on the show. You remember, Amanda, we talked about it very early on, but then there was this big gap in the discussion because there's been so many other things going on. But you'll love the comment that Ron had pointed out. Ron Kane, our famous freight godfather, he did talk about how if you're going to do heavy equipment drivers and construction and other fields can make more than OTR drivers. Man, Zeke, you are fast. And I thought about you, Amanda Miller, because I was like, "Ooh, that's Amanda's area." Your flatbed. I know that you love. What did you say the other day? Steel coils, something.
Yeah. Steel.
She's so excited.
Yeah, coils, raw steel, bars, billets. I mean, sheets, plate.
Ooh, talk dirty to me.
Yeah.
Well, there's
all of that.
Yeah. Skidded coils. No racks.
I mean, I like the big. I like big, heavy coils, and I cannot lie. Yeah, equipment, oversized, you name it. I love it. I love it all.
So how is the driver shortage in the flatbed areas? Is it the same thing? By the way, is it? Well, I'll let you answer that question, then I'll ask my follow-up. And Tristen, you too, and anything else.
Just from my perspective and my little baby role in the industry, I can't speak to a driver shortage. I know capacity is harder to find, and I'm paying more for freight than I've ever paid in my whole career, which is fine. The market is volatile. It goes up and down. It's a free economy. It's how it works. But I am starting to feel like I've made a couple of down payments on some boats for some people to get some stuff moved for customers. So
Makes
A lot of my
sense.
customers' freight budgets went up in flames this year.
Yeah.
How do
It's
you
all over the
manage
place.
it?
I mean,
Yeah.
have you guys seen the Morgan Stanley Freight Index recently? Because it's came out like a few weeks ago and it's insane. There's like, it's like the highest volume freight in like 15 years and the lowest amount of OTR drivers. So it's like, we're in unprecedented times, as much as I hate saying that, because that's like literally what everybody says about everything. But
Yeah.
It's crazy season's coming, and I mean, I don't think it's going to slow down anytime soon.
no. Mm-mm.
No. Mm-mm.
There's too much freight that's sitting. There's too many customers that need their material. And again, like I do open deck raw stuff. I don't do foodstuffs or retail or anything like that. So just my little baby corner of the market, it's not slowing down. And my customers asking me, when is it going to slow down? When are the rates going to come back to what they consider normal? And it's having these conversations and like having a strong enough relationship with my customers where they'll listen when I'm like, look, like whatever you thought was normal, you need to just let it go. Like there isn't such a thing as normal in this business. I run spot freight most of the time. I have a core group of carriers for a bunch of project stuff that I do for some good customers. And that stuff I can price pretty well. And those carriers are good to me. I was listening before I was able to get on, about like taking carrier, the loyalty issue. I've seen it a little bit, but my good carriers, I mean, they've stayed loyal, and like I've tried to take care of them, when it was bad, and they're helping me out when, now by not asking me for $1 billion on 100 miles.
Right. And that's what relationships are, the only thing that's going to really keep everything like normal. But again, we kind of have to figure out the new normal. If we've lost 200,000 drivers in the past 2-3 years, like I mentioned before, I think the show started, I think my company is up to 90,000 paying over the road drivers. So this is like, that job is slowly going to become a very high paying career move. And, that's obviously going to also increase shippers' budgets, and that's also going to increase product cost, so everything's everything is a domino effect.
Buttered bread is bringing it full circle. I see what you're talking about.
Yeah,
I saw that. I was like, we know. Yes.
She says, I hope those carriers today are remembering this when they ask why, when rates go down, do brokers and shippers ask us to move so cheap? Flip side of the coin. It's very true. And I see a lot of posts on social media about the rates right now. And there are a lot of people advising truck drivers, like, save your money. You never know when it's going to turn around, blah, blah, blah. But I would be interested in hearing, how I love that. And I'm hoping I'm right, that truckers are making really good money right now. And I'm excited for them. Even with the cost of fuel going up, Grace or OTR Grace or Tristen, I mean, are truckers still happy? Are they still making money and doing well, or is the cost of diesel stressing them out?
They're still making money. They're still making money.
Good.
Yeah. Still making money. I think everybody, is doing very well right now. OTR, when we see diesel go up, we celebrate that. Gas prices going up mean typically carriers should get paid more. Produce coming, gas prices going up. I mean, one could argue that freight rates could continue to rise, which is wild. But this is a perfect storm right now, and carriers are doing great. And personally, I love to see it. Obviously, when they do well, we do as well. I won't deny that, but it is amazing because we do see them struggle. As we all know, freight is very cyclical, and when they struggle, we struggle for them. I've been through years. This is going on 10 years now, through years where a carrier delivers a load and says, Grace, I can't even afford a sandwich when I'm done, so I rally for them when we see this. And absolutely, we want them to understand what's going on in the market and make sure that they're pricing themselves well out there.
Tristen, what does this mean? Barrel prices are moving up, and we will see if surcharge rates stay in line. I see that from Innovative Logistix.
Adam. Is that Adam?
It's Adam too. Our troublemaking Adam. He's going to be back on soon.
That's how I met you, Cassandra, through Adam. Great friend of mine.
Great. He's very good. Wait, no, I'm mad at him. No, he's not great.
Are you mad at Abby?
But he said,
when Abby touched on relationships, like that's key for me. I mean, some of my carriers, they're like, Tristen, I'll do it for you. I'll do it for you. You know, when I have to say like, look, I know normally this is what we do. You know, can you help me out with this one? It's the relationship. You know, I treat them good. I make sure they get fair rates because I will fight back and forth with my shippers. I have great relationships with my shippers as well. And same thing that you said, we have to explain to them sometimes. We have to educate our shippers on what's going on. A few of mine, sometimes they don't know what's going on out here. They're just like, get me a truck. Not all of them. A lot of them are very well educated and they know what it takes. But relationships has definitely helped me during these tough times. I'll say that.
interesting.
I think
Good.
I was gonna say, I think that communicating, especially if you're more of like a brokerage or logistics company, shippers, I think, could definitely do this more too. Communicating when you are taking losses or when you are kind of bending your back for a carrier more is going to help you for when these times flip. I can't tell you how many times I would say, listen, like, I'm getting these covered for this rate, but I know that you come through for me in different situations, so I'm going to come. But if you're not having that exact conversation, how do you just expect them to understand that transparency? I think a lot of times it's like, especially if brokerage is so fast, right? Like, how many loads can I get done right now? And even to just take a few seconds to say, this pickup location sucks. So I'm going to give you my cell phone number and you can text me memes while you're stuck there for an extra 2 hours. Like, that stuff goes a long way than knowing. I feel like sometimes people will like hold a certain amount of profit, knowing that 4 hours from now they're gonna get a call about, whoa, I told you.
There it is. Did you do that on purpose?
No.
You gotta answer it. You gotta answer it.
Be like, hey, Mom.
I just hung up on them. You know, like, who could it be?
It's one of those phones
creepy.
that rings like 50 times too, you guys.
Dude,
No
I don't even want. I can't even get started on that. But that's so funny. But yeah, I think being transparent and instead of holding revenue or profit aside for when the issue is going to occur, it is just a smarter play. Like, just be honest with them. Let them know, like, if this ends up happening, I've got a certain amount here that I can give you for retention. But like, don't set them up for it. Especially, this is the environment where like you're gonna find that more because it's so hard to find drivers that people are just gonna like, yeah, you're gonna be like in and out. It's a van load, or no, I'm not gonna be in and out. Like, it's gonna be a little bit tougher.
And you know what, too, is carriers kind of have whatever say they want. So if they start working with a brokerage that maybe is not super accessible, they are not answering the phone when they have detention or a problem, well, okay, next. You know, so I think it's important on our end too, that we're taking time to really like listen and understand the issues that the driver's having, because we need to keep these people on our team. So
I'm cracking up over here with Andrew Teal's comment.
Did I say something weird?
Listen, I'm already. I'm already in this, like, you know me, I'm already been trying to figure out butter bread, and now him being here is like throwing. I don't have time for your energy today, okay?
It says, Grace, we've been trying to reach you about your car's expiring warranty. Hung up on them. Sorry, I saw that. Your point was really great. I just saw that. Cracking up over here. So I think that we have hit on so far, we've hit on rising fuel costs. It seems like, even though I see drivers bitching on Facebook and people bitching, I think they're just bitching to bitch. Because it seems like they're still making money. So I'm like, what are you getting so mad about?
That's what I use social media for. Isn't that what we've all been just doing?
True.
Like,
I mean, that's the entire show right now, actually.
Yeah.
Or every Friday. We're talking about driver shortage and capacity. One point I wanted to go back about the driver shortage, which was really interesting, is that I had Doug Wagner on my show a couple times, and he's an LTL expert, and he told me that they don't have driver shortage as much in the LTL area because they don't have to do, obviously, the long hauls, get them home in time, and the pay tends to be better as well. So I thought that was really interesting. Has anybody seen anything in the market where we're not doing as much long hauls and we're trying to find ways to get drivers home sooner?
No. I disagree.
Yeah, I disagree.
I mean,
with that.
there's
yeah.
don't get me wrong, I'm sure there's plenty of that, but like there's so much like over the road long 250-mile plus. I mean, it's very, because that's what I used to do is I used to look for freight that was able to get our company drivers home every night, Monday through Friday, you know, and it's very hard. And a lot of that freight is for larger companies anyway. A lot of companies have their own private fleet. So their private fleet is usually what they have the short hauls. So finding like outside drivers for that type of thing is, in my experience anyway, is harder.
I guess the point I wanted to touch on was I noticed, and you hit like perfect on the mileage aspect. I've seen mileage dropping. I think that there's more warehouse space going up. I think that you're seeing, because we want everything here now, you're seeing more of these like micro fulfillment centers where, you know, here's a perfect example, and I kind of hate it if you think about it in full picture, but when everything closed down, Amazon started buying malls, the thing that they made irrelevant, to use as warehouse space.
Yeah.
What? It's like you took this stuff out of there to just put it back in there. They're doing that so that they can actually hit that next day, or the new 2-hour delivery window and things that they're doing. But I'm interested. I don't think it's like going to happen in the next couple of years, but I'd say in the next 10 years, like how much more drivers are going to just be able to come home because they're only going from a 200 to 400 mile warehouse moves at the most.
But
I had noticed in the comments too that someone mentioned autonomous driving, and that will help with the driver shortage. We talked about this yesterday, but first of all, I don't think that's coming for a while. Second of all, we have planes in the sky that fly themselves, but yet you still see pilots in the cockpit, right? And, I don't know, I don't own a Tesla, but I've been in one. And obviously when you're driving around, like it'll say self-driving turned off. If a little speck of dust gets on one of those cameras, the idea that, right, freight will never just be left alone. Like who's going to leave, if you get a flat tire, there's an issue with the truck. You're not just going to leave freight on the side. So I think we all understand that there needs to be a body in the truck. And then you could argue, well, it doesn't need to be a CDL, licensed driver. I would think so. We would still put a pilot in the cockpit of a plane. So, I still am thinking that there's definitely going to need to be drivers for the foreseeable future.
Well, and if we could open it up to 18-year-olds, the people we let fight for our country with no issue, then maybe we could add a couple of people to the roster.
They can go to war, but they can't drive a truck. And by the way, they can't
exactly
anymore either.
Yeah. Handle this AK, but please don't cross the border. And
don't smoke a cigarette.
Yeah, don't smoke. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I find that so funny.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Horrible. But that's a really good point. If there was a way where kids who didn't want to go to college could have this lucrative opportunity to drive a truck and grow up in that environment, I mean, there are a lot of good companies out there. So one other question that was listed off that was in the comments as well is, what is the appeal for drivers to go from owner to be their own operator versus working for a company that has everything handled for them?
More money. They don't have to share. But I used to talk to a lot of owner ops, and it's hard because they have to do everything on their own. They have to do the invoicing and all that stuff.
I would hate that. It's so much admin.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there are companies that do it for them, but they still have to plan everything on their own. So they're their own dispatcher, and that's a lot of work. So if you have that time and you're able to be self-starter and do that, then great. But that's why I think a lot of companies utilize brokerages, because we're basically doing the work for them. They can kind of pick and choose whatever they want to do. So I know Tristen, you probably have a little more insight on that, but
I mean, not really, I guess. Not really.
that's
Not really.
I mean, and so I will say too, the other thing is owner ops work for themselves, so they don't have to. They don't have a company that says you need to take this customer's freight for them. They can basically decide, no, I don't want to take this. I'm gonna instead chase spot and make my own money, and then I'll come back when I'm ready. And that is hard because you can't blame them, but all goes back to relationships. When you have relationships with those owner ops, they're not going to do that, hopefully.
Back when we got started, what you talked about, having your own authority, all the paperwork, all the requirements, it was a lot. I see a lot of people wanting to lease on to other companies for that exact reason. Just like you said, they have to dispatch their own loads, do their own invoicing and whatever. And it is difficult with all the different changes, with the laws and regulations being changed. A lot of people don't want to deal with that. It's a lot of headache. The admin side is a huge headache with having a trucking company of your own. Like personally, I had to hire people for that specifically. I have someone that does all my invoicing. I have someone for my compliance because I'm too busy. I used to do it all myself. So on the flip side, I will say that social media has made trucking very sexy, very attractive. So many people are jumping into the industry.
Right.
And so when you said I probably have more insight, I just have mixed feelings about it, really, because it's difficult. It's difficult. And I tell people that we fail. That's the first thing I did when I came into the trucking industry was fail. And we had to start over. There was a lot of things I didn't know, wasn't educated. That paperwork killed me. And now it's different. Things are totally different for me now. But I think social media has made people believe you got a couple dollars, jump into trucking, and they don't know what's coming afterwards. Things get tough, things get difficult. We just had a pandemic. So I just have mixed feelings about it.
Well, and I'll say this, there's a lot more education out there than there ever was. So as you mentioned with social media, yes, it's glamorized. The freight rates are amazing. So it's like, I should go off. But, Tristen, I want to plug you. I mean, you provide the education out there as well that allows for people to be able to finally not be dependent on trucking companies, and they can go off as an owner operator, and they can succeed, and they can build their business with some strategic partners and build in some dispatchers and some back office solutions, and recognize that they can do this themselves. Technology today, load boards and the access that you have. I mean, even from a factoring perspective, you used to have to walk into a truck stop to fax your invoice, and you paid $1.
And that we definitely have that experience.
Wild.
Yeah. Now you take a picture with your phone and shoot it over for free and get paid the same day. So technology is making it easier for the carrier,
absolutely,
and the owner operator. And the education is unbelievable that's out there. And, Leading Ladies of Logistix does that, helps educate people on how to be a successful trucking company and, a woman in trucking.
Yeah, that's what it was about. I made all the mistakes, a lot of them. And I try to help other women avoid that. And I didn't intend to be in trucking. It was never something like I was a little girl growing up saying, oh, I want to own a trucking company. I got into it to help a family member. And it was just so many things that we didn't know. My father-in-law was a great driver. He's been driving for 45 years now. But he didn't know how to run a company. He just knew how to get on the road and drive. Yeah, there's a lot of education. And I think people should take heed, before they jump into this industry, because it's not for the weak.
It's kind of sad that we're not retaining all those folks who are jumping in as well.
Yeah,
exactly. Now that I think about it, like I've seen posts from football players, like former football players, saying that they're going to start a trucking company, and I'm like, oh God, how hard that is. But I wish keep them too. Wish we could keep.
What's funny about this industry too is like it's very when you come into it, you have to prove yourself financially more than like most industries I can think of. So it's like, if you're going to start a new brokerage or start a new trucking company, you almost have to be more capital heavy than if you were just starting a restaurant or something of that nature, because you're going to have to pay your drivers faster than everyone else. Like, you're going to have to prove that not only do you have the cash, but you have it right now. Especially, like, imagine being a truck driver and thinking to yourself, oh, produce season is picking up. I'm going to jump into that. Mm-hmm. Don't worry about that. That's just a picture that fell off.
Again, Grace.
Well, that was a full picture that I should have known was going to fall off that table. I was like, God, don't worry about it. Anyways, you have to be able to put more cash up front. So produce, right? Like, a lot of times you are going to have to pay to get unloaded. You're gonna have to pay lumber fees. And we all know how shippers like to pretend that doesn't exist. And then once you get there, be like, oh, you don't have $500 in cash? So yeah, I think it's interesting, the people that are entering it, because like any other type of financial investment, like if you're gonna look at the stock market, like, you definitely shouldn't get into Bitcoin when it's super hot. Like, the point of it is to get into it when it's actually more of a risk and make out that way. Mm-hmm. So yeah, be very cautious. Follow Tristen, take her classes, because there's a lot of small things that are gonna hurt you.
You know what, Grace? I still tell people, just because there's a class, it does not mean that this is for you. It's not for everybody. The industry is not for everybody. Everybody wants to be a broker. Everybody should not be a broker. Like, first of all, I think I got a wild hair up my butt because I was a freight agent for several years. And I had this idea like, oh, let me help these women. So I started a brokerage. And then when I did, I'm like, did I lose my mind or what? You know, things were great for me as an agent. Everybody doesn't need to be a broker. Everybody doesn't need to start a brokerage or a trucking company. There's so many other support roles in transportation that's needed. Go get into some of that. You know, I just think a lot of people jump in, and I'm guilty. I know personally, like from social media, transportation has allowed me for sure to start other companies. But of course, that was not back in 2009. That was in the last few years. Back in 2009, I didn't know if we were going, coming, staying, or what. Yep. So again, I said, you know, I'm probably one of those people, you see, it affords you a certain lifestyle, but a lot came with that. So I put that out all the time. It's not for everybody. It's just not.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of small brokerages starting up because they see what others done, like get rich quick. They don't realize most shippers are not going to bring on a true brokerage with no actual trucks. I mean, that a lot of, you know, corporate is, they've just X'd out broker. Even saying the word broker now is even like, oh, no. Nope, you're a broker.
And it's so funny. This conversation drives me nuts. Amanda and I have talked about this before, many times actually, because it drives me up the wall, which is shippers will say, no, we don't use brokers. We're not using brokers. But the majority of them use pure brokerages. Either they're confused, actually understand that there's no assets because they don't know. And I've busted a couple big shippers and I've been like, you know, Coyote doesn't have any assets. Just, you know, Global Trans doesn't have any assets.
You don't?
And then the other thing is, too, is that shippers, they won't admit it. And I know y'all are in the comments, but so I'll admit it for you, which is you like brokers because they are the ones who have to pay. They're your banks and they're your insurance companies.
Yes. Thank you.
Yep. They vet those carriers. We go through that whole process. You know, they don't have to do that. We do that. I have to make sure they have all the requirements, the insurance. So we work. Some people think brokers just sit behind a desk and we don't do much. That's BS.
But do you guys know about well, Cassandra, you definitely know, is that PACA, right? Like, how can we get PACA for shippers where like they don't? So PACA is what produce companies can reach out to. It's a government organization that basically, if they're not getting their bills paid because they understand farms need to function on a certain pay period, they will take their license from them to do business. And I've always been like, well, why don't brokers have that? Or why don't in between, like, intermediates have that, so that when shippers are like, yeah, about that rate I told you we could do, like, it turns out my boss didn't like it. Like, I don't care, but you get stuck in this spot where, if you're a small and you're growing, like, oh, what's my revenue going to do if I just say no to this? And I always just thought that was super interesting. Like, brokers have to get a bond in case we do it, but then like shippers know that a worst case scenario, they could run away forever. Like, it's crazy.
Sure. Amanda, are you still seeing that in your segment of the industry? I know that you're really close with a lot of your customers, so maybe it's not, not as much, but are you still hearing that I only work with asset companies? Even though I've heard with your side of the industry, which is flatbed, it's a lot of work for a broker.
It can be. I mean, personally, I love it, but yeah, I mean, the broker rejection is just like a broken record. I mean, I hear it every fucking day. Excuse me, every day, because I'm making cold calls every day, trying to get my foot in the door somewhere. Oh, we only use asset-based brokers. And I'm like, you just have to you get kind of crafty and spin it around and try and change their mind. You're not going to change it maybe in that call, but you keep calling every couple of weeks, and
I think it's because
break them down.
The term broker has gotten such a bad stigma in the past because everybody thinks double brokering. So people think of the term broker,
They don't even know what
and
it
they
means.
they don't know who has your load.
Yeah.
And a lot of times the carriers we're putting your loads on, the shippers' loads, we have a better relationship than maybe some of our own asset drivers. I know that's definitely been the case where my dudes who will text me, give me updates all day long, and I can't get in touch with our own company driver, so there's that too. And obviously it all depends on the nature of the freight, right? Consistency, where is it shipping into? All those things play a huge part. So you really have to strike the balance on where brokers are going to be the most beneficial and where they're not, and then assess how you're going to bring the most value to that shipper and figure it out from there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's definitely a balance.
I would like to say to Kurt A, who just made a comment saying no class, and I think that's reference to Amanda cursing on my show. I curse all the time on my show. But what I would like to say is that
not sorry.
I'll be the one who says this, is that if it was a man on my show who said the F word, there's no way that anybody in the comments would have said no class. I just want to point that out. Kurt A, please dig deep down inside of yourself and think
Kurt
about
A, who is that?
We were doing so well not mentioning that.
I know. I'm like, slow your fucking roll
right now.
Trucking, and everybody swears in
Right.
trucking. What kind of woman swears? How many people send me messages saying, I wish you didn't curse so much, Cassandra. It's just so demeaning to your intelligence and da-da-da-da-da. I get those messages all the time. But on Freight Waves, Craig Fuller can go fucking curse at some conference in front of everybody, but that's okay. It's cool because it's Craig Fuller and he's a man. Okay, I'm done. I will tell you that we have
words, and you're actually greater intelligence, so fuck off.
So we talked about all the other difficult things. What about being a woman in transportation? Is that difficult?
Depends on how you want to shape it. It's hard industry just by itself. Egos are huge. Whatever. We might be the fairer gender, but I don't take shit off anybody.
Yep, me either. Me either.
My biggest challenge has always been
you have to have a really strong backbone. You have to be thick-skinned. You have to be okay with
Definitely.
people calling you horrible names, strangers you've never met, and that are pissed about whatever, something happened out of our control. You're just like, okay, I only got called the C word 3 times this week.
Right.
Great.
It is.
I would say I'm probably gonna get a ton of bad comments, but I think women are better at our industry in a lot of ways, just on the empathy side, the fact that we're a little more in tune to maybe the nonverbal or whatever. If we have a pissed off driver, we would probably be able to handle that situation better than, Chad, who is golfing, whatever, who's on the golf course and is like, no, dude, whatever. I digress, but you know what I mean. You know, we a lot of times come off a little more understanding than maybe a male perspective. But
I mean, love this comment too. It says it can be a useful tool, knowing that when I enter into discussions, I'm often underestimated. I love that comment because I can be too. And I'm sure it's not just a woman thing, right? I'm sure if you're a man and you're not as outspoken, or you're quiet, or you're minority, I don't know, could be lots of context you're underestimated, but sometimes that's really good being underestimated.
I was going to say, like, underestimate the shit out of me. I don't care, like, because I'm a
still perform.
I mean, I was raised by my dad and my uncle, and you know, they're big sports guys, and Playboy was on the coffee table. I don't apologize for that. You know, I was raised by strong men, and you know, my whole thing is if you're going to dish it, be prepared to take it. But I want to play ball with the guys too, and I want to show them I can keep up. And you know, I'm detail oriented. I love our carriers and our clients and our brokers, and I can build relationships, and you know, we can do it just as well as they can. Do I think about being a woman in logistics? Sure. But do I think of it in a positive way? Absolutely. It's been good to me. I absolutely love it. I love my male, you know, coworkers. I've got some great guys, but like, I mean, that what you just said, Cassandra, as far as like the person, like that's what we do. You know what I mean? Like we just, when we get those comments, we just roll with it and say, hey, I'm not going to apologize. Like, I know, you know, you do it, we do it.
Yep.
It's the vernacular of the industry. It's literally common language. Like,
yeah,
It is.
Grace, you know, I have to say the same. When I first came into the industry, it was difficult to be a woman. But now my organization, we get so much support from men. I mean, a lot of great industry leaders. So it's definitely different. It's different now, for sure. I mean, I know it's still tough for some women, but I can honestly say we've been getting a lot of support from the men in the industry. So.
Grace, Sharkey, how have you been doing as a woman in the in leadership? I have a lot of opinions on this, but I know that you've held some C-level positions and have a lot of experience.
Yeah, you know, it's. I was going to touch on it when Abby was kind of working on it a little bit, but I think sometimes when we say like women are better at it because we can come to a more common ground. We talked about a little bit yesterday. I think that we almost we combat being called maybe a bitch or too strong by coming immediately to a common ground. It's something I've struggled with. Just even like personally being kind of not a pushover, but sometimes just like, no, I do hear you. I do understand the point that you're making. It's not registering right here. The problem that I'm having is that because A, B, and C, that isn't going to be the best choice. And I think sometimes women have to spend more time doing their due diligence, spend more time kind of like reciting what they're going to say in their head before actually speaking up. And so when I take tests, like as a like, you know, in college and stuff like that, I was that person that if I changed my answer, I got it wrong. Like my gut instinct was usually right. And so I really try to push myself to like not second guess what something is telling me deep down inside. One thing that I'm like kind of learning, or not even learning, but more of just like taking on as like a mantra is, if someone gets angry, it's usually not you, it's an insecurity they're dealing with. And I do it too.
Something
like
at home too.
Yeah. Like sometimes I'll get mad about something and I'm like, are you really upset with that person? Or are you just like insecure about where you are at this point in time right now? So I think sometimes like dealing with drivers or even dealing with being in C-level or dealing with, you know, bosses and things like that, it's smart to not take it personally and to almost skip to, okay, what's that insecurity that I'm pushing on right now? And what can I do to either mend that or help them feel more secure in order to get to that common ground without me just like folding to make it to a common ground. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I like Dina said over here that women are more open to as a general rule, tend to be more open to alternative solutions. And I think that's pretty true. I think that's true. I also think that there's a downfall as well. In all the places that I've worked, I try my hardest to always hire as many women as possible and build a very powerful women group. And I will tell you that I often have to coach women because they will blame themselves for a lot of things that are not their fault at all, not even close. And they're very, very hard on themselves. Very hard on themselves.
We tend to apologize when we shouldn't. I know I do that. We've got a women in logistics organization at OTR that we started years ago because I was there and a woman left because she said, I really don't see a lot of working women yet. And I was like, well, we're a lot younger. Like most of our, employees just haven't gotten to that place yet. We're starting families and having children.
Yep.
And they're like, logistics and freight, it's 24/7. I just don't think that this is an industry where I could be a career woman, have a family. And in that moment, and this was many years ago, I was like, I'm going to show everyone that we can do that. We can have a career and we can, be in this industry and be great moms too. But there's a balance as well. And I will say this is one thing I'm a stickler about. If my male counterparts can show up to a board meeting, so can I. So I do think to be a career woman, we have to have that balance and we have to figure out how we're going to do it. Just like the men, they have people covering at home for their families. I do that as well. And I have to find a balance with doing that. But if I need to be there and I need to show up, I always do. If the men can be there, so can I. I find that to be very important. But I do want to show women you can have a career and a family and be in this industry and be very successful. But I want to definitely empower women to be here and have both.
I want to touch on that really quick. It's just so funny because I just did something in Grand Rapids about this topic. I think it's very important for people to, especially male leaders, to digest the phrase work-life balance. Because I think sometimes when you're talking to women, what you're really saying to them is you want to have a family someday and you're going to need time to balance that. Where it's sometimes that balance is no, I have friends I would like to visit on the weekend, or I have lunch. Yeah. I'm going to touch on something very sensitive that I want to put on the table because as more women get into this industry, especially drivers, people really need to understand this. There is a large group of women who cannot have children. Mm-hmm. So when you bring up to them that you want to make life perfect for them so that they can someday have a family, you have just put yourself 10 steps behind in that woman's mind. And you have cornered her into an insecurity that she is probably very much so dealing with. So I get really frustrated when I see conversations like this where people are like, I want to make this role so that they could take care of children. One, not a lot of us care about kids. I'm a great aunt and I'm going to keep killing at being an aunt and I'll work on the kid thing later. But there is a lot of people that struggle to even be in a point to have a child. And no woman is going to sit at a table across from you and be like, that's not true for me because I can't have a child. No, she's going to go home and she's going to cry and she's going to eat 4 pints of ice cream about it. So it's true. And
it's a wonderful point.
Yeah. And it's a point.
You're not going to dig yourself out of the hole. You lost a really hard battle to fight against. So just don't even put it out there.
Even more is that one time I sat in a leadership meeting and one of my peers she just had a child or something. I don't remember what it was. Maybe it was she had a child 3 months before, and we were sitting in a meeting and my boss, he said, hey, Cassandra, I want you to take on this project. It is going to require you to work a couple weekends this month, blah, 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 but you're already working weekends anyhow, so you're okay. I know that Samantha over here can't take this project because she's got kids. And I was like, oh, I see. Oh, I see how this is going down. And like, but then his mind, that's what he felt like he was doing a favor for this woman who had kids, and Cassandra can handle it. She doesn't have any kids. She can work the weekends. And I thought that was really interesting. And I thought about that for a long time. And I was like, damn, man, I need to like have a kid so I can have my weekends.
or even
OTR, even laughing. I know she's laughing at that.
Well, and even the opposite. Now it's like in your head, you're like, oh shoot, like, should I not have kids so I can continue developing my career? Like, you literally hurt two people in that comment. So it's like,
well, Grace, so for someone like me with a disabled kid, I left my good government job to be full-time in transportation because I had to work for myself so that I could make my own schedule. I mean, my boss looked at me and said, so how much longer are you going to have to take your son to therapy? And I'm looking like, do you have any kids? Because you have some nerve even asking me that, you know? So it's just all around. Like,
it is.
And that's the good thing about COVID, though, is that someone was saying this to me a couple weekends ago, that COVID has made employers much more sensitive to families and to people just in general and where they're going and they're traveling. And it has offered the opportunity to, I mean, on one hand, I work too much, but on the other hand, you know, I can have the opportunity to go do whatever the heck I want to.
yeah.
Well, travel in general has gone down so much, and it probably will never be the same as far as business goes. You know, like we've realized, oh shoot, we can kind of do this to a point. Obviously, like face-to-face meetings, in my opinion, are still way more valuable, and those are still always going to be basically put you over the top instead of just Zoom calls or whatever. But
for sure. Well, you guys, this has been absolutely amazing. I can feel already that there are going to be lots of little nuggets that we're going to do spin-off videos on. I hope you guys join me again next month. Even in the comments are saying that there are so many amazing people on the show right now with great experience. So I thank you very much. And thank you, Mad Trapless. And next Friday, we will have the famous Freight Godfather on. I'm trying to think. I've got a whole bunch of great people. Michael Caney's going to be on. We've got somebody from DAT on. We're going to talk about RFPs. So tune in. That'll be a juicy topic. I know that Grace Sharkey loves RFP season. And have a great weekend, everybody. And thank you to our sponsors, Swan Leap, OTR, and JJ.
Bye.
Bye.
bye.